Okay, here we are, back with number 9 of the draft analysis. Um, we are doing Vikram today from the Sword Division. So is relatively new to NCPL, but he is also one of the people that drafted one of, if not the best drafts last season. So as we see, he's going in the same direction, building a really phenomenal draft with a lot of versatility. Let's hop into it. So I scored Vikram's team overall a 41.5. At face value, this team doesn't look like really overpowering or anything like that, minus the sand that we can see. But the thing with his team, like I just said, is the versatility. So before we hop into the scores of each attribute here, the versatility and what I'm talking about is what his team and what each Pokemon can do. So each Pokemon has the ability to either run physical or special or utility, which is very, very hard to prep for. You prep for a physical Charizard or a special Charizard, and you get a physical Dragon Dance Charizard. That's an issue right away, considering Charizard gets Dragon Dance. And if you do this in the reverse, vice versa, prep for a physical one, and you get a Sand Weather Ball Charizard with Fire Blast and a base 100 Earthquake or Earth Power, basically from Weather Ball. That's pretty hard to deal with. So, not to mention we have hidden power in this draft, so that makes it even more versatile. So that's just a little tidbit of what I'm talking about versatility. But for offense, I scored his offense a 9. So obviously the overbearing part of this offense is the sand, known as cheap sand with Gigalith and Stoutland. But in this draft, this is not cheap sand. This is very, very strong. The ability to outspeed basically everything just by having that double speed is pretty ridiculous. Not to mention Stoutland gets returned in Nat Dex, and in this draft, and a banded return with double speed from Sand Rush really, really freaking opens up teams. So if you don't outright resist this or immune this is really gonna blow some big holes in your team. But aside from the sand, we have offensive Pokemon in Drapion, Comfey. I will mention Gigalith because I think a lot of people forget that he has a base 140 attack stat. So with no EVs invested, this is still hitting around 340-ish, which hurts. Taking Rock Blasts and Earthquakes from this is not fun, switching into, especially if it's not resisted. So you also have Charizard. I will mention Metang as well because that Bullet Punch is actually going to be very useful in just coming in and revenge killing, and just cleaning up in a safe way, knowing that you're going to have priority and not have to send in something like Drapion or Charizard or Flygon, and worry about the speed ties, which he has run into a lot. So I think that was that Vic? Somebody has run into a lot of speed ties here. Maybe it was Flo. Then you have Samurott, and you have Stoutland, and you have Drifblim as an offensive threat as well. And of course, I did not mention this right away, but Flygon. Now, Flygon as a captain, people are probably like, well, I mean, kind of a not too much to Flygon. Like, why wouldn't you pick something like really heavy bulk or really heavy attack power like Darmanitan or like Florges? Well, the thing with Flygon is it can be physical or special, and it has really great coverage. And just having Earthquake Stab is really nice, and having it in physical or special is going to be really great. I do want to check though, because I checked on every other person here. Okay. Anyways, Flygon also gets access to Defog, which is going to be really, really great for his team. And then with the ability to have hidden power in this draft, I think that's also going to be super helpful. But yeah, like I said, Flygon can be anything he wants for his team. It can be a defogger, a defogging, roosting tank, If it's got the right resists for a team, for a matchup, it can be a choice scarf, it can be choice band, it can be choice specs. I mean, the ability with this Pokemon is through the roof. Not to mention, it gets priority as well if you want to run it physical, first impression. Be Annoying, Defog Roost, Dragon Tail. The things you can do with Flygon is endless. As long as there is not a ice Pokemon or a ice move, anything like that, this Pokemon is going to do great. Base 80 stats all around except for attack and speed, attack being 100 and speed being 100. So great attack tier, great speed tier, especially for the versatility. I do expect to see first impression more, Dragon Dances. That's another thing. It's got Dragon Dance, gets dual wing beat now. I mean, its coverage is just through the roof. So if you guys are thinking this is not a super phenomenal captain, just really think again. This is a really phenomenal captain and probably flew under the radar very easily. So I know it definitely flew under the radar for me. So, but anyways, yeah, offense a 9. I mean, versatility, sand, just physical or special. This is a really hard team to prepare for. So, you know, you got things like Comfy as well with priority, priority Giga Drain, priority Draining Kiss. So it's very, very hard to deal with. But anyways, moving on from Flygon, we have Drapion. Drapion we've seen in previous drafts to be actually really, really good. With the Assault Vest set, being able to set up Toxic Spikes. Just a really, really good Pokemon to put on any team. Really, I mean, battle armor is going to be nice. You're not going to be crit, but the move pool that this Pokemon has is stab knockoff, stab poison moves, stab poison jab, earthquake, swords dance, toxic spikes, black sludge for recovery. Again, this is another Pokemon that you can kind of do what you need to do with it. You need it to be a tank, you can build it to be a tank. If you need it to be offensive, you can build it offensively. You know, some defensive traits that it does have Whirlwind, it does have Toxic Spikes, it does have Knockoff, Infestation, Iron Defense. That's about all it's got defensively, but I mean, building it as something to soak up moves is also really nice, and its ability to soak up Toxics or Toxic Spikes is going to be really helpful in getting in favorable switches. So again, base 95 speed tier, so you can scarf this if you want. It does have high enough attack that I would say band is okay. Base 110 defense, so it's a very bulky Pokemon. Base 70 HP, base 75 special defense, so a great Pokemon to fit on any team. Very little weaknesses. Only one, and that's ground. Resist dark, ghost, grass. So as you can see, dark is going to be nice to resist for that Drifblim and Metang, especially ghost as well. Grass will be nice to resist for Samurott and Gigalith, and then of course just poison is nice to soak up. So that's basically what we got for Drapion. And then Comfey, of course, you got Calm Mind, priority Giga Drain, priority Draining Kiss. That's kind of where it's gonna be offensively. Having Natural Cure as well to soak up some moves is gonna be really nice. It does have U-turn, so its capability is really good. Switching it in often is probably not the best though, considering it's only got 51 HP. It does have great defenses, but again, that 51 HP is very, very hard to keep alive for a long time. So that's really kind of where Comfey is offensively. I don't really expect anything else from it offensively. Could run, you know, choice item and trick just to catch somebody off guard and make sure that triples one of their threats. But yeah, offensively, that's where it's at. Calm Mind. I don't really see it just running 3 or 4 attacks without Calm Mind. So Gigalith, like I wanted to mention, we should talk about. I did get its attack wrong. It's base 135, not 140. Still quite high. That hits. I'll give you the exact number here, guys. So I got this wrong too. without any EVs invested, his attack hits 306. So that's still quite high to just not have any EVs invested to. You generally don't want to be taking Rock Blasts and Earthquakes from this, since some Pokemon don't even hit that with full investment and beneficial nature. So I mean, I think Drapion doesn't even reach that in beneficial nature. Yeah, so Drapion is Jolly. Yeah, so Drapion Adamant is 306. So Gigalith, no EVs invested, not the right nature, he still hits 306. So just for an example of it's a high attack stat. But yeah, offensively, it can run Iron Defense Body Press, so that is something to watch out for. I don't expect to run it to run like any crazy special attack stuff. It does have Meteor Beam, but just definitely not useful for his team. Does have Weather Ball, again, not really super great for his team. I generally expect this to be running Rock Blast, Earthquake, Toxic, but Iron Defense Body Press, definitely something to watch out for. Explosion is also a little hidden gem there, I would definitely watch out for. So that's about all he's going to do offensively, in my opinion. Iron Defense, Body Press being the most threatening. So moving on, we have Charizard. Charizard, like I mentioned earlier, special or physical. We have already seen Vic run the Dragon Dance set. It also does have access to Weather Ball and In the Sand. This is going to be really, really good for his team. Specs, whatever, Scarf. It's going to be great. In this tier draft, and heavy duty boots allowed, or in Pokemon now, is really good for Charizard. So sorry if I seem like I'm rushing through the offense here. I just know that I spend a ton of time on offense, and I don't want to spend an enormous amount of time on offense when I can spend more time on other things that are good about this team as well. So Matang, like I said, Bullet Punch, does have Rock Polish. Don't expect it to be much of a setup. I expect it to be rocks and coverage and just that cleanup Bullet Punch. So now Samurott was interesting because I always thought of this Pokemon as really, really poor, but when you actually look at its moveset, it's really not terrible, especially in a draft like this where it's like low tier Pokemon, and he's got pretty high stats. 95 HP, 100 attack, 85 defense, 108 special attack, and then 70 and 70. That's pretty good all around. So with the ability to be attack or physical or special, again, another Pokemon that can do this. So that's 3 that can do this very effectively. Flygon, Charizard, and Samurott now. It does have Hydro Pump, Grass Knot, Ice Beam. For the special side, with Hidden Power able to be used, this is really good for it. This puts up its use very high. So on the physical side, it has Sacred Sword, Superpower, which is really nice, Smart Strike, Knockoff, Night Slash, Mega Horn, Liquidation, Iron Tail, what else we got here, Dragon Tail, Aerial Ace. So I mean, it's not that bad of a move pool from what I was remembering of it being just this Pokemon that only had water moves. Either it got buffed in some way, or I was totally looking at this wrong. But anyways, yeah, so it's really got actually a decent amount of coverage. Also has workup. You could see a mixed set, which would be really hard to deal with. But yeah, the point of this Pokemon, and again hitting the point of his team, is the versatility of physical or special, which is very scary to deal with and prep for. Moving on, we have the Stoutland. We all know what Stoutland does. It comes in with Ban or Sand or Life Orb, and it breaks open holes in your team, or just outright sweeps you, or cleans up what's left. So its ability to have return in this draft, and then its coverage overall is just, it's impeccable. It's one of the best Pokemon drafted in this draft for sure. Next we have Drifblim. This is a recent pickup, so I think this is good because it kind of helps with his Earthquake weakness that he did have. Although he did pick it up for something that is not weak to Earthquake. It is nice to have a full immunity to it, considering you have Drapion, Gigalith, Matang, all weak to Earthquake here. So, but Drifblim, an interesting Pokemon. I'd like to see it used because I'm not too familiar with how this Pokemon is utilized in lower tiers, but from what I see Unburden, Flare Boost being the most useful here. Flare Boost giving him a 1.5 times power to special attacks, and Unburden just meant for cleanup. Not sure what you would pair with Unburden. Maybe a berry, like Citrus Berry or something like that, but I see Flare Boost being pretty good. So with its ability to have Weather Ball, and just its coverage overall with Weather Ball and then Calm Mind is going to be pretty good. So, but again, this is a Pokemon that has a lot of utility. It can be that Flare Boost special attacker, it can be the Unburden cleaner, but it can also be a defogger and an annoying Will-O-Wisp Hexer that we've seen Dragapult pull off many times. It has terrible defensive stats, but it has base 150 HP, so this could work effectively in this draft. It also has access to Strength Sap, Haze, both very great defensive options to halt a sweep or make sure rocks aren't going to be up. So heavy duty boots defog side is going to be great on this Pokemon. Has a plethora of things that it can do. Aside from that, disable Hex, disable Will-O-Wisp, all that stuff. Destiny Bond has knockoff. It also has Memento. What else we got? It can do Trick as well. It's got Thunder Wave. It's got Tailwind. So I mean, this is a very, very strong utility Pokemon for his team. Build it to match any matchup that he needs it to. So I think this was a really great pickup in week 3 trades here, or week 4 trades. Really great pickup. Although I'm a little bit sad that he traded away Sandslash, which was really good for his sand that he's got going on here, because Sandrush Sandslash is pretty good actually. So, but overall, I think this is a great pick. I'll mention this one ability too, because it's pretty annoying. If this Pokemon is KO'd with Contact Move, the move's user loses a quarter of its max HP. So, kind of like when you KO it, basically you're gonna take like a big Rocky Helm type of damage from it. So could be pretty annoying to stop a sweep or something like that. But again, it's got base 80 speed and Haze, so I think that's going to be most useful for Will-O-Wisp and T-Wave to cripple a sweep. But that's it offensively. Moving on to the defense here. So I rated his defense a 7. I think he has a good defense, but like I mentioned earlier, he has some sharing weaknesses, which every team does. Although I just think that it brings down his defense just a little bit. Not to mention his defensive Pokemon, aside from a couple here, don't have the greatest defensive stats per se. Comfey is a great example of this, as it's a good defensive Pokemon in terms of defogging, heal belling, things like that. I think it can even wish. It cannot wish. So excuse me from that. But defogging, U-turn, heal bell, or aromatherapy. It's a great defensive Pokemon in its moveset, and the ability to have priority Draining Kiss and Giga Drain to heal itself. It still only has base 51 HP, base 90 defense, base 110 special defense. So its defenses are great, but this is a Pokemon that does not typically want to keep taking attacks. Its speed and its priority allow it to stay alive longer, but this is not something that you generally want to just keep sending in to soak up attacks, especially if you send it in and it soaks up toxic. Then you're really hooped, because you either got a heal bell or you gotta use Giga Drain, Draining Kiss to make sure that you don't die off the next hit. So, but defensively, yeah, Comfey, that is my example of why kind of his defense is around a 7, I'd say. You have Gigalith, which I think is his best defensive Pokemon here. This thing is really great, very underrated, especially with the tier that it's in. I think it should be 1 tier higher. The ability to have Sandstream and then get its 1.5 defensive boost and it really doesn't have bad special defense. It's base 80, so getting that boost is really, really useful to keep it alive. It has base 85 HP and then base 130 defense, so you could put this in full special defense and still have a 290 defense. I'll get the exact number here for you. Yeah, 297 defense with nothing invested into it, and then 374 HP. So this is a really great tank, very reliable stealth rocker, and a very annoying Pokemon to get toxic from, since it's gonna live almost anything. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, yeah. So Gigalith, his best defensive Pokemon. I expect this to come defensively as a rocker almost every one of his games. Flygon can be used defensively. Do I want it to be used defensively on his team? Probably not. I think this is one of his best offensive Pokemon in terms of its utility and what it can do, and its move pool. So defensively, moving on though, we have Matang. With Eviolite, this thing is a monster to take down, especially not being able to toxic it. It's very, very annoying. So it's base 100 defense, base 80 special defense. So without any EVs, that's 237 defense, 196 special defense, plus Eviolite, and then 324 HP fully invested. It's very annoying to deal with. It's going to toxic a lot of things. It's going to get rocks up very reliably. So not to mention that frees up a slot for Gigalith here to not run rocks if he doesn't want to, so, or vice versa. And then last defensively, I will mention Drifblim. As I mentioned in the offensive part of this section, it has really great utility for his team and to help his team deal with things more defensively. Like I said, his defensive options aren't super strong. While they are good defensive Pokemon, they typically don't want to keep taking hits. Comfey is the only one that I think could take multiple hits just because of its ability Triage, and then getting Giga Drain Kiss. Again, though, he wants to use Drifblim in a way that he can mitigate the damage so that these Pokemon can come in more often. So running Will-O-Wisp Hex I think is really good for his team. Having Defog on it will also free up slots for Comfey. It has T-Wave, it has Toxic, so these things are going to be really useful for his team, whittling things down so that the opponent does not want to just keep clicking attack moves and going on autopilot against him. So, but does have Haze, does have Defog, Will-O-Wisp, T-Wave, Toxic. Disables another really great one to force switches. So this is a great pickup, a great utility mon for his team that I think is going to help him chip down Pokemon so that Stoutland can come in and just do cleanup like he wants to do every game. So, but that's kind of where his team sits defensively. I mean, you could run things like Stoutland, Intimidate, but you're shoveling down the offense when you do things like that. So keeping his team in their respective sections, his offensive Pokemon in offense and defensive Pokemon in defense, is going to be really good for his team. The versatility is going to come from his move pools and what they're going to do. That's what I think is going to change in his team. Not so much Flygon being defensive versus offensive. We're probably only going to see it offensively, but it can be used defensively. So that is why I've rated it a 7. Moving on, we have speed, 8.5. So Sand obviously being the glaring point to his speed tier here. Having double speed in a draft like this is just tremendous. Very hard to deal with if you're not getting a T-Wave on it. Very hard to deal with. So if you're not burning or T-Waving the Stoutland. But as I was mentioning earlier, his speed tier is really not that bad. He has 3 base 100s. Drapion at 95, Stoutland at 80, Drifblim at 80. So this is pretty high speed tiers along Matt's speed tier line. Not quite as across the board as Matt's, but still very, very, very fast team overall. you have a slow team, it's going to be hard to deal with, considering he has U-turn and Flygon, U-turn and Convey, U-turn and Driplim, so and then reliable switches. So yeah, in terms of speed, he has great Scarfers as well. Flygon can Scarf, Charizard can Scarf, Drapion can Scarf, Samurott can Scarf. I don't expect Stelton to be Scarf, and neither do Driplim, but Unburden is also something to mention in the speed tier here. He can use that as cleanup instead of Stelton, and use Stelton as a wall breaker instead, if he wants to get really tricky. But as for speed tiers, I think he has a great speed tier. His team is going to be faster than most teams in that draft. But other than that, he doesn't have really anything that's kind of going outside of that. He has Dragon Dance on Flygon, and he has Dragon Dance on Charizard, which I think is really great. He has priority in Metang with Bullet Punch, priority with Confei. So these things are also going to help out his team if he's going to run into Pokemon that have higher speed tiers, or that are very fast and Scarf to outspeed the Stoutland. He can deal with it with Metang, Bullet Punch, and Comfy Triage. So really great coverage for him. He's covering his back pretty good. He's got it built so that if something is outspeeding Stoutland, he can deal with it effectively, so that Stoutland can eventually come in and clean up. So really great picks for speed here. Really great. Hazards I rated at 8.5. He has defog everywhere. So when I was doing the research on this, he has defog on Drifblim, defog on Charizard, defog on Comfey, defog on Flygon. So it's very hard to say which Pokemon is going to come with defog every single game. Probably going to be Comfey, but again, he can still run 3 attacks on Flygon and defog, or 3 attacks on Charizard, defog, or he can run a utility-based Drifblim defog. So when that happens, it's what's running through your head is like, okay, well, if he has defog on Flygon, what the hell does Drifblim? What the hell does Comfey have? He has defog on Flygon, well, maybe Comfey is a setup sweeper. These are things that makes his team hard to prepare for, and hard to switch gears in game with, because it'll confuse you and pressure you, right? So defog everywhere. So this is a hard team to have rocks against, or screens, and generally he's going to get rocks up very easily, whereas if you're constantly trying to set up rocks and he's got 2 defoggers on his team, very hard to deal with. You're going to take a lot of chip damage. So great defoggers, way to cover that really well. Comfy being the best of them though. But as for actual hazards, he has Toxic Spikes on Drapion, which we for sure will see here in the draft. Very useful. I don't think there is a ton of poison types drafted, so it's going to be very annoying to deal with. And then you have a super reliable Stealth Rocker in Gigalith, and a super reliable Stealth Rocker in Metang. So very easy to get those off and chip damage down for Stoutland or whatever Scarfer he's planning to bring, because really there's a lot of Scarfers. It could be Charizard, Flygon, Samurott, or Drapion. So again, another thing that's very hard to prep for on this team. Scouting is going to be very difficult against him, but I just want to double check here. I don't think Flygon gets Stealth Rocks. No. As for other hazards, I don't really think there isn't any other Pokemon that's going to set up hazards. We're generally going to see Stealth Rocks from Gigalith almost every single game, unless Gigalith just has a terrible matchup against the team. If Gigalith has a terrible matchup, I'm going to expect Drapion to bring Toxic Spikes again to make sure that he can wear down Pokemon, so that his Scarfers or Stoutland can come in and clean up or just break holes into a team. So overall hazards 8.5. Just the amount of defog that he has and the ability to deal with hazards, I think is the high point of his hazard score here. And another big thing to mention here is he has 2 Pokemon weak to rocks here, but heavy duty boots is a thing. The rest of his team really doesn't care too much for rocks, so really great. Again, just a really well-rounded draft here. Next up and last here is Momentum. Now 8.5 is what I scored it. Again, This is the glaring thing on his momentum here is sand, and that is going to be the glaring thing when anybody preps for this team is sand. It's just so strong, and to have Gigalith and Stoutland on the same team and not sniped away from you is going to allow him to just outright sweep a team if somebody's not coming with speed control, or just break holes into an opponent's team. Like I said, banded return is no joke. If you don't resist this or immune this, it will do 50% or more, regardless, if you're not resisting it. So, really, the momentum here is him sending in Stoutland that's where it's going to start. He gets Stoutland in for free, it's either going to KO a Pokemon, or it's going to break a hole into a Pokemon that you needed later in the match. And that's going to allow him to snowball. So you also have things like Sand from Gigalith giving Weather Ball to Charizard, and then Weather Ball Fire Blast Charizard is pretty hard to deal with. It covers a lot of his options. As we've seen in Moltres, it's very useful having Scorching Sands, having that Earth Fire coverage. So momentum, though, that's really where it sits. Stoutland is just the overglaring part of this momentum here. It's going to do everything that he needs it to do. Break holes, sweep, clean, anything. So momentum can be brought in other ways too, though, with Iron Defense, Body Press, Gigalith, or Calm Mind, Comfy. Those can very quickly get out of hand. Comfy being the more so of these two, Gigalith, Comfy. Because of its priority. So Calm Mind and then priority recover moves like Draining Kiss and Gauge Drain is extremely hard to deal with if you don't have something to neutralize that boosting, like, you know, giving it a choice move, or hazing, or whirlwinding, things like that, because Dragon Tail is not going to work on this Pokemon. So when you are versing this team, that is something you're going to have to look out for. But to end it off here, I think Vic, again, has drafted a wonderful team. Does it look as amazing as his last draft team? It doesn't look like that. But once you start diving into every single Pokemon and what it can do, it's a really phenomenal draft. And I think this is one that might be overlooked by a lot of players. So if you're not doing your prep against this team, he will take advantage of that. So overall, great draft, Vic. I really loved doing this analysis on this team. There's just so much to it and so much you can do. So I'm very excited to see these matches and what he's going to bring, especially with that new addition, Drifblim, here. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.